Feeding the new space race. Aleph Farms is an Israeli firm that makes meat in a laboratory. It also created a steak from cow stem cells on board the International Space Station. The process is based on a natural process for muscle tissue regeneration. The startup identified which cells builds muscle and grew them in cow-like conditions. The aim is to create artificial, cruelty-free meat that makes efficient use of resources, as well as showing how future space colonies could sustain themselves.
Okay, innovators there called Aleph Farms, a food tech startup based in Israel which cultivates meat, more precisely beef steaks, in a laboratory. Now, it might sound rather unusual. They say the meat they produce isn't just delicious, it's also nutritious. As we saw in that video, they're using cells from a cow. The cow is in no way harmed in the process, so for animal lovers, this might be an interesting one. Minimal environmental impact as well, so lots of good things about it. And this technology can be applied anywhere. As we saw, they made meat at the International Space Station. Now, you spoke to Aleph Farms. You watched that video. Would you, Marcus, I heard a rumor you quite like beef steaks. Would you eat one that had been grown in a laboratory? In short, meat that had never mooed?
Well, it's true. I do prefer my my meat to come from something that mooed. But as I think, as a lot of meat eaters, we're more and more aware of the impact of raising cattle on the environment. And some people calculate that a third of the United States land area is given over directly or indirectly to growing meat. So that's a huge direct and indirect environmental impact. By all accounts, this lab-grown meat tastes very good. The biggest challenge is texture, and Aleph Farms are working with a Russian partner to use 3D printing to produce different layers, different grains of meat and fat to get something that looks more like a steak. But as regards burgers, they're already at the stage of a perfectly acceptable burger.
Okay, so kind of like a steak haché, you might say in French, like a kind of compounded minced
Absolutely,
beef.
yeah. You've put all that minced beef together and you get a burger which must account for a huge share of meat consumption around the world. And we may soon reach a tipping point where the huge fast food chains will find it cheaper to source their meat from either lab-grown or plant-based recipe. And if consumers go along with it, then that will be a huge change to our food supply chain.
Yeah, and make a positive difference to the environment as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks for that, Marcus. Let's cross to Tel Aviv, and we can speak to Lee Recht, who is the head of sustainability at Aleph Farms. Here's what they told us.
Thank you so much. We are extremely honored to receive this award. Aleph Farms is creating a beefsteak. So we're creating a cultivated beefsteak, which we do it without harming the cow. And without any kind of and with very low impact on the environment. That because basically what we're doing is we're taking cells from the cow and we're mimicking a process of what we call tissue regeneration that happens in a natural way in the cow, but we're doing this in a controlled environment, in a much more efficient environment, in a disease-free, no GMO. And this way we can produce in a large scale for the mass with a much, much lower impact on the environment as well. Major challenges, I would say the first challenge is more of a technological challenge. So the R&D people were working very strongly on improving methodologies and reducing costs, really providing all the infrastructure for a large scale. And then on the other side, we also have our other challenge is with consumer acceptance. And that's working with, really helping to educate the population that basically this food is actually very natural, because we are taking a very, very natural process and we're putting it in very controlled conditions. This allows actually also large-scale productions, but really also a much healthier product as well. And also, of course, with a smaller impact on the environment. So these are two challenges that we're dealing with. On my aspect of sustainability, so sustainability for us is in the core. And how we can reduce, reuse, recycle, really try to make our carbon and ecological footprint as small as possible.
Okay, Lee, thank you so much for telling us more about what Aleph Farms is doing.
Thank you too. It has been absolutely a pleasure.
Okay, Lee Recht from Aleph Farms in Tel Aviv speaking to you, Marcus, a little earlier on. Let's get some academic perspective now. We can hear from Professor Michal Eitan, who is at the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem. Let's listen in.
Design in Jerusalem, Israel. Hello from Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem, Israel. My name is Michal Eitan and I'm a professor of entrepreneurship and impact innovation and a proud member of UNAM. Climate change is one of the biggest challenges of our times. One of the main reasons for climate change is meat production in general and beef production in particular. Production of meat from livestock is an important and pervasive way humans impact the environment. It causes about 1/5 of global gas emission and is a key land user and source of water pollution. It also competes with biodiversity and promotes species extinction. Minimizing beef consumption is considered a major goal in mitigating the environmental cost of human diet. Aleph Farms is paving a new way forward as a pioneer in the field of cultivated meat, working passionately to grow steaks directly from sales of cows without harm to animals and with far less impact on the environment. What I liked about Aleph Farms, in addition for coming up with a brilliant solution, is that they assembled a Generation Z advisory board that lets younger generation to be proactively involved in shaping the world they're living in. In addition, they demonstrated the technology in space together with their partner 3D bioprinting solutions on board the International Space Station, hundreds of kilometers from any local natural resource. Facing the rapid depletion of world natural resources and a massive food shortage, this innovation solution gives hope and encouragement to expand the boundaries of food sourcing on Earth and beyond. Thank you.
Okay, and that was Michal Eitan at the Bezalel Academy of Art and Design in Jerusalem. Of course, she is one of the UNESCO NetExplo Advisory Board members. Now, Marcus, you were just listening into that, and I want to go back to that idea of making meat in space, because if anyone was in any doubt as to how transportable this innovation is, there's the proof. Very transportable.
Well, I'm sure that's what they did. That's why they did it. Aleph Farms teamed up with a Russian company that makes biological compatible 3D printers to produce a steak in different layers that the astronauts on board the International Space Station tucked into. The fact that it's you can do it in space shows that it can work in any climate as well, obviously. But I think it also answers a question which is quite important: is what are we going to eat when we travel to Mars? I think it's fairly certain that private or state initiatives to explore the near solar system will be happening in the next few years, and they're obviously not going to take a cow on board with them. That would cause all sorts of problems, but they do need to grow their own food as they go along. And the idea of having stem cells that grow into steaks gradually over the voyage, and then when we start to set up bases on Mars, for example, this actually solves the environmental problem, but also the problem of what do we eat, how do we feed ourselves if we set up more bases in the solar system.
Okay, so beef steaks on the menu for anyone going to Mars, potentially.
Must be difficult to cut up in zero gravity, though.
I like the vision of a cow going into space. Anyway, thank you very much indeed for that. Remember, you can vote for this innovation by sending a text to the number +33 0644 630710. Send the number 2 to that number by SMS.
And you can also vote on the NetExplo app.
Absolutely. So 2 places you can vote, the app or by SMS. Up next, Julia is back, and she's going to be taking a look at an innovation called Astroscale, which aims to make space a little bit cleaner.